Good morning, children. Welcome back in your English class, and I hope you all are fit and fine and you are happy. And I also hope that you have watched my video, you have seen my video. Children, before starting the next topic, next explanation of the chapter, that is the Poetry of Lady, I want to tell you one important thing. And I told you this in our previous lecture also, that I have already sent you the syllabus, and also I am teaching this chapter, Poetry of Lady, from the CBSE NCERT book, that is the Hornbill, because I have not got any book from the market of English, and the book is still not available in the market. So whenever I will get the book, I will show you in the video, and I will definitely send the PDF of the chapters. But children, don't worry about the chapter, because I am sending the explanation of the chapter. I am sending the paragraphs of the chapter, that is a Poetry of Lady, along with this video. So children, don't worry about the chapter. Just listen the video carefully, and just and make yourself more comfortable with the video, and watch the video and study carefully. Okay? So children, don't worry about it. So children, now let's start the chapter. Let's start the today's lecture. Before going the next explanation of the chapter, that is the Portrait of Lady, as you have already know that we have started the chapter, that is the Portrait of Lady, a short narrative story that is written by Khushwant Singh. And children, in our previous lecture, before going further, let's have a quick revision of some important points whatever we have discussed earlier in our lecture. Children, we have discussed about the background of the life sketch of the background of the story Portrait of Lady. We have also discussed about the Khushwant Singh. We have also discussed about the brief life sketch of the Khushwant Singh, about his life, about his literary works, and about his themes, what he deals in his literary works. And children, we have also discussed about the themes, morals, and purpose of the Portrait of Lady, and we have also studied about its background, what circumstances, what conditions where when Khushwant Singh has written this story, and what type of stories, what type of themes Khushwant Singh deals in his work. We have already discussed about these points. Children, we have also discussed about the whole summary of the story, that is the Portrait of Lady, written by Khushwant Singh. And in the summary, we have discussed about the relationship, a very beautiful and emotional relationship between grandmother and grandson. And the summary we have discussed about the theme of companionship. We have discussed about the theme of friendship, a special bond of caring, a special bond of friendship, a special bond of love and affection between grandmother and grandson. And we have also discussed about the moral, that how beautiful emotion can be seen between grandmother and grandson. And a special care, a special attention our elders also need from us. So this story brings about a theme of companionship, a theme of special relationship between grandson and grandmother, a theme of caring, a theme of friendship. So children, we have discussed all these points, and we have discussed how the Khushwant Singh was very much connected affectionately with his grandmother, how his grandmother loved him, and how his grandmother treated him, and what type of relationship they had between themselves, and what turning points arrived in their beautiful relationship. We have discussed all these points in the summary of the story, that is the Portrait of Lady. Children, now we will start in today's lecture. We will start about the explanation of the paragraphs, and we will first read the paragraph one by one, and then I will explain the paragraph one by one. So first read the paragraph along with the meanings, and then I will explain the paragraph one by one. So let's start the explanation of the paragraph, that is the paragraph of the story, that is the Portrait of Lady, written by Kushwant Singh. So children, let's start the explanation of the paragraphs of the Portrait of Lady written by Kushwant Singh. So the first paragraph, first I will read the paragraph, then I will explain the paragraph one by one. And first I read the paragraph, then I will explain that paragraph to you. Now the very first paragraph, children, first I read the paragraph. My grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for 20 years that I had known her. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even had a husband. So children, the first paragraph, in the very first paragraph, the author describes a vivid describes about his grandmother. And in the very first paragraph, the Kushwant Singh describes a vivid description of about his grandmother. And in the first paragraph, the writer says, the author talks about his grandmother. What he talks? He says that he had known her for the past 20 years. He had known his grandmother for the past 20 years, and she had always been old and wrinkled. And what author says? Author says that Kushwant Singh, he had known his grandmother for the past 20 years, and she had always been old and wrinkled. Wrinkle means wrinkle means having lines or folds on the faces of old people. You have seen. I hope you have seen the lines, wrinkles on the old people's face. So people said that she had once been young and pretty and even had a husband. And what author says? Author says that he was told by the people that she was once young and pretty and had a husband. But that was hard to believe. But for the author, it was very difficult to believe the fact that she was once young and pretty. It was very difficult. The author was not the author was not able to believe. It was very difficult to believe in the fact for the author that his grandmother was once beautiful and pretty. My grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. He wore a big turban and loose-fitting clothes. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest, and he looked at least 100 years old. In the next lines, the author describes about his grandfather. What he says about his grandfather? That his grandfather's portrait hung on the wall. मतलब उनकी जो दादा की जो तस्वीर है ग्रैंडफादर की, वो दीवार पर, ड्राइंग रूम की दीवार पर लगी हुई है. इन विच ही वोर लूज फिटेड क्लोथ्स एंड अ टर्बन आपने देखा होगा पगड़ी, टर्बन, एंड हैड अ लॉन्ग वाइट कलर्ड beard that reached his chest. His grandfather had a long white beard, उनकी जो लंबी सफ़ेद दाढ़ी थी, and he also looked very old. Here he says that he looked at least 100 years old. It means that he looked very old, and the author thought that he was someone, that his grandfather was someone who could have many grandchildren but not a wife or children. And then what author says next? He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. And what author says that his grandfather was someone who could have many grandchildren but not a wife or children. Then as for my grandmother being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. The thought was almost revolting means it was very hard for the author to believe the fact that his grandmother was once young and pretty. So the author says that the author could never imagine that once his grandmother was young and pretty. It was very difficult for him to believe in this thing that his grandmother was once young and pretty. In fact, he could not connect to this idea. She often told us of the games she used to play as a child. That seems quite absurd and undignified on her part, and we treated it like the fables of prophets she used to tell us. Now, in the last these lines, the author says that she used to tell him. She used to tell him and his cousins. She used to tell tell Kushwant Singh and his cousins about her childhood memories, like the game she used to play as a child. Yani she used to tell about his childhood days, about his childhood memories, and like the games games she used to play as a child. But what happened? That seemed quite absurd. What? The stories of her childhood memories. The author says that, but they found, Kushwant Singh and his cousin found these stories how absurd, illogical, and undignified means disrespectful. Yani they found, Kushwant Singh and his cousin found these stories illogical and disrespectful. They Because it was beyond their imagination to think that grandmother was once a child and played such games. But they could not able to think. It was beyond their imagination to think that the grandmother was once a child and she also used to play such games. And we treated it like the fables of prophets she used to tell us. In fact, what they thought that that her life stories were like the other moral stories of saints and prophets which she used to tell them, which the author says that author says that her life stories, the stories of her life were just same as the moral stories which she used to tell them about prophets and saints. Here, prophets is saints. Here is the first paragraph completed. Now let's start the second paragraph, children. Now, second paragraph. In the second paragraph, she had always been short and fat and slightly bent. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. Now here the author, in the second paragraph also, the author is describing about his grandmother, about the personality of his grandmother. What author says that? The author says that she had always been fat and slightly bent. The author says that his grandmother was short, fat and slightly bent in posture. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. And she seemed, and her face had lot of wrinkles. Was a crisscross of wrinkles means she had a pattern of intersecting straight lines. यानी उनके चेहरे पे जो है वो wrinkles का, झुर्रियों का जो है वो जाल सा बना हुआ था. एक जैसे मकड़ी का जाला होता है, वैसे उनके चेहरे पे जो है वो झुर्रियों का क्रिस क्रॉस एक जाला सा बना हुआ था जो पूरे चेहरे पे जो है वो नजर आ रहा था. The author says that her face had lot of wrinkles. She seemed so old. No, we were certain she had always been, as we had known her, old, so terribly old that she could not have grown older and had stayed at the same age for 20 years. She could never have been pretty. Now the author says that she seemed so old that she had been the same for the past 20 years. यानी she was so old that she had been the same for the past 20 years. यानी वो इतनी बूढ़ी थी जैसे कि पिछले 20 सालों से वो बूढ़ी लग रही थी, वैसे वो आज भी बूढ़ी लग रही थी. And according to the author, she could never have been pretty. And the author says that she was beautiful but not pretty, but she was always beautiful. Yani the author says that she was beautiful but not pretty. In what sense the author is saying this a statement that she was always beautiful, she could never have been pretty? Physically, the author means to say that his grandmother was not pretty, not attractive, not beautiful, but spiritually she was beautiful. But she was always beautiful. In what sense? That she was spiritually beautiful, because she had a spiritual divine soul, because she has a divine presence, because she had a holy presence in the house, because she had a spiritual soul, she had a divine soul, and she had a divine personality. That is why the author is saying here, physically she was not pretty, physically she was not so attractive, but spiritually she was always beautiful. Now next, she hobbled about the house in spotless white, with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop and other telling the beads of rosary. Rosary means a string of beads for keeping count of numbers of chants made of religious prayer. Have you seen the rosary? जो माला लेके हम भगवान का जो नाम जपते हैं माला पे, that is called rosary. So the author says that कि she hobbled means walked in an awkward way, यानी बहुत अजीब तरीके से जो है वो चलना. She hobbled यानी she walked around the house in an awkward way, wearing spotless white clothes, यानी बिल्कुल सफ़ेद बिना किसी spots के. She walked around the house in an awkward way, wearing spotless white clothes with beads of rosary hanging from one hand and the other hand resting on her waist to support, yani resting on her back for support. And her silver locks were scattered untidily over a pale puckered face, and her lips constantly moved in inaudible prayer. Now the author says that she had a silver colored hair. What type of color her hair had? She had a silver colored hair. Locks means hair. She had a silver colored hair which was not neatly combed and was disorganized. Yani her hair was not neatly combed and was scattered untidily over his. Untidily means messily, yani scattered messily on her puckered face. Puckered face means face full of wrinkles, यानी झुर्रियों भरा चेहरा. यानी she had silver colored hair which was not neatly combed and scattered over her wrinkled face and was disorganized. And her lips constantly moved in inaudible prayers, and she was continuously chanting the prayers, and those prayers the prayers which she was chanting was inaudible because she could only hear and no one could hear the prayer, chanting of the prayer. And then what happened next? Yes, she was beautiful. In last two lines here, in this line, yes, she was beautiful. In this line, the author accepts that she was beautiful. The author accepts the fact that she was beautiful. Yes, she was beautiful. How? Because she was spiritually beautiful, because she had a divine soul, because she had a very peaceful mind, because she had a very divine thought. That is why the author was saying that she was beautiful. She was like the how she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountains, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. Now in these two last lines, the author says that the author compares her to the winter landscape in the mountains, and those mountains has a peaceful and calm feeling. The author compares his grandmother to a winter landscape in the mountains which has a peaceful and calm feeling. And in fact, she was a live example of pure white, calm, humble and peaceful environment, and happiness and satisfaction. She was, the author presents his grandmother as an embodiment. His grandmother seems as an embodiment of purity, peace, serenity, and contentment and satisfaction. The author is trying to say that his grandmother was like a winter landscape in the mountain, which has a peace, which has a peaceful and calm environment, which has a peaceful and calm feeling, and she was alive, and she was an embodiment. She was an embodiment of. She was a symbol of purity, holiness, and serenity, and contentment, and ultimate happiness. Now second paragraph is also completed, children. Now let's start this third paragraph. So the third paragraph, let's start the third paragraph. My grandmother and I were good friends. My grandmother and I were good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. Now in the third paragraph, what author is saying that? The author is saying that the author lived with her in the village. Now the first line, my grandmother and I were good friends. As I told you in the summary, that the story, the theme of the story, the story tells about the theme of companionship, the theme of strong and special bond of friendship. That is why here the author is saying that my grandmother and I were good friends. The author says that, what author says that the author lived with her village, and the author and his grandmother were good friends, and they were good friends. His parents left him with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. And the author's grandmother, and what author's grandmother was doing, then she used to wake him up in the morning and get me ready for school. She said her morning prayer in a monotonous sing song. Monotonous sing song means dull and boring, यानी बहुत ज़्यादा मतलब जो है उसमें कोई इंटरेस्टिंग टोन नहीं और कोई एक्साइटमेंट, कोई जॉय ना हो, was dull and boring. So she said her morning prayer in a monotonous sing song while she bathed and dressed me, in the hope that I would listen and get to know it by heart. What author is saying that? The author is saying that the author lived with her in the village, and they were good friends, and his parents left him with her to settle in the city. The author's grandmother used to wake him up early in the morning and get him ready for the school. She would recite her morning prayer, and she morning prayer in a very dull and boring tone, in a very dull and boring way. And while she bathed and dressed me in the hope, and she morning prayer, while she bathed and dressed him up, and he but the author loved her voice, but would never try to memorize a word of what she spoke, what she recited. But she never bothered to learn those prayer, to learn those words what she spoke by heart. But in fact the author says that I listened because I loved her voice. Why the author listened her voice? Because he loved her sweet voice, but never bothered to learn it. But the author never bothered to learn the prayer, never bothered to learn those song, and never bothered to learn those words what she spoke. Then what happened? Then she would fetch my wooden slate, and she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk. Then what happened? She would make his things ready. She used to make his things ready, like a wooden slate, a tiny earthen ink pot. She plastered and washed his wooden slate, and also with yellow chalk. and also and she made other things also ready, like a tiny earthen ink pot and a red pen, and all these things she used to tie in a bundle and hand it to the author. Then, after a breakfast of a thick stale chapati with a little butter and sugar spread on it, we went to school. She carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs. And after that, what happened? After that, the author was served a very delicious breakfast, and he would eat a thick stale chapati with what? With a little butter and sugar spread on it. And that was the most delicious breakfast that Kushwant Singh had ever eaten in his life. And what he would eat? He would eat a thick stale chapatis with a little butter and a sugar spread on it. And then what happened? They both used to walk to school, and his grandmother carried some stale chapatis and with her to feed the village dogs when she came back to home. So children, and here the some difficult words are given with the meanings. So you watch the video and just see and also see these words with the meanings. So children, we will finish the up to the third paragraph. So children, we will stop here, and in the next lecture we will start our fourth paragraph and its explanation. So we will stop here, and take care of yourself and your family. Goodbye.